Welcome back to another episode of my Atlanta Hawks franchise here on NBA 2K25, where we're coming off of a disappointing Game 7 loss in the quarterfinals to the Cleveland Cavaliers. It was a series that we got up 3-1 in, but injuries to Trae Young, the Cavs getting hot was just not quite enough, and you see we lost by 16 in Game 7. Just did not have the firepower to play with them at that point, which sucks, but we move on, and still a great year one. So we take a look at the playoff stats for the team. Trae Young obviously had an outstanding stretch in this playoff run. I think he did an outstanding job, was easily the key player of the offense. Really did an excellent job just in total putting the team on his back. He started off with, I think, 8 straight games with 40 points, of at least 40 points. Then the injuries started to finally pile up and kind of lack his explosiveness, and his shot making was a little less efficient towards the back end, but still made plenty of plays for us. Just did not quite get enough around him. And as we take a look at some of the stats of other players, DeAndre Hunter had a really rough playoff stretch. He's a guy that I just kind of struggled to shoot with, a little bit of a longer shooting motion. Something I need to get adjusted to. I do like DeAndre Hunter. I've had the thought process of maybe attempting to move on from him, maybe package him, and trying to improve his spot, but he gives us such good defense, and that's really important to me, especially with Trae Young being our superstar player. Not great defensively, Bogey not being a great defender. DeAndre gives us the good versatility, being able to play the 3 or 4 and play defense at an extremely high level. So it is important to me to try to keep him going. Bogey had a great playoff run, shot for us very well. Clint dominated the boards. Jalen Johnson probably didn't get him as involved as a scorer as I wanted to kind of throughout a lot of the postseason, but did have a couple of really nice games. Dyson Daniels was excellent coming off of the bench. Zachary Richardson, I thought he played a little better than what his field goal percentage shows, but played good defense for us. Kongwu and Larry Nance both played well, and that's pretty much rounding out the players that played a whole lot for us in the postseason. But obviously Trae was a superstar. And we got some good contributions from other players along the path. We just didn't quite have enough to get it done and make an Eastern Conference title run. But hard to be too disappointed. The Mavs and Cavs are who have made the NBA Finals. The Mavs absolutely ran through the Western Conference. The Cavs got really hot. Obviously did a really nice job in the Eastern Conference. But let's take a look and see who ends up winning the NBA title here in year one, and it will be the Dallas Mavericks. Kyrie Irving, who was also the Western Conference Finals MVP, ends up winning Finals MVP, 43.8 points per game. And yeah, let's jump to the offseason. And it was during this time frame, as you guys noticed at the beginning, I realized that we ended up having an extra first-round pick that I didn't remember us having from the Los Angeles Lakers. We need to keep that in mind, because there is some excitement coming from that. But as we're coming through here, and sorry again if you noticed the text at the beginning, I'm recording this video, having to record the audio afterwards, had something go on with the live commentary, so I'm having to do this for the first time afterwards. So sorry if it's a little bit awkward, but we'll make our way through it. So as I'm pointing out here, we're going to take a look. We're going to get through the draft lottery and everything today, but we will not be doing the draft. Did have some big retirements, as you see, the big two being the ones at the top, and LeBron James and Chris Paul, Kyle Lowry, several other names I'm going through. Obviously, the biggest one here being LeBron James. Was not really thinking he was going to be gone after year one. Obviously, you have the choice to override a player, but I decided not to do that and just let it ride, but tried to at least take a look at the most notable players here as to who retired without going completely all the way down the list. And then beyond that, we take a look here at the Hall of Fame inductees, which of course are LeBron and Chris Paul. Totally makes sense. Jersey retirements, LeBron had it for 3 different destinations. Chris Paul and Kyle Lowry got their jersey numbers retired as well. I think that's a really interesting thing the NBA 2K does that other that other sports franchises do not. Like, I don't know of another one that does it. There may be other ones that do, but nothing that overly stands out to me. Here I decided to allow players to enter the league once they turn 18. I decided just to go along with that. And it literally was right here that I noticed. Well, I guess we ended up going over the draft prospects. And the first one that really stands out here is Luther Towns. He is the absolute bona fide #1 overall prospect in this class. A power forward out of Alabama. Is a really, really good player. And, I mean, has Tim Duncan's ceiling. He's a starter at his floor. Kind of gives you a little bit of everything. He's an excellent offensive player. He's got great athleticism. Pretty good post defender, good on the boards, has excellent size. I mean, he's maybe not like a Wemby level prospect, but I think is a clear step up from what we had, at least in this past class where the Hawks ended up drafting Zachary Ricochet #1 overall. But yeah, he is absolutely, without question, the top #1 option in this class. A. Pickett is a player behind him, Ohio State. Kind of seen as the clear #2 prospect in this class, a shooting guard. Got good size, I think has really good potential, but not quite there, but he's at least solid pretty much all the way across the board. And I think has a chance to be a really good scorer, especially in that mid-range spot. Is very, very solid for him. But yeah, we end up just kind of taking a peek at some of these prospects without really diving too much into them here as we do get ready for the draft lottery. And again, I completely forgot that we had the Lakers pick in this draft, but it does end up working out. This is the first time I point out Jack Wright. He's one of my favorite players in this class. To me, is the clear third option. Guy out of Minnesota, a shooting guard, can really score around the basket and does a nice job on the perimeter defense. But I show here A. Pickett, ceiling of Kobe Bryant, with the Bradley Beal starter as his floor. He's a guy that I think is going to take some time to get there, but he's obviously very young, and of course does have that upside as they are pointing out here. But yeah, I do think that he's probably the second best prospect in this class, but definitely worry about just, I guess, how quickly he is going to get to that spot. Chip Howell's another fun prospect here that we're looking at. Got a Rick Barry All-NBA, but he does have a floor of the bench, being a bench player. He's a small forward. Let's see, 20 years old. Not a great offensive player right now, but it gives you good defense, good athleticism. He does have pretty good potential, though. So out of UCLA, probably a guy that can take a little time, but may get there eventually. So yeah, during this part of the video, just kind of going over some different guys. If there's somebody that stands out to you, please let me know in the comment section. But this Jack Wright guy is a guy that I started looking at probably a couple of videos ago off screen. Is like, okay, this is a guy that's really interesting. I think that he's got the potential to be a really good player. Kind of fits what I'm looking for, a guy that can score around the basket. He's kind of the shooting guard version, at least to me, of like a Dyson Daniels. But yeah, so we just, and sorry, this is my first time recording over a video that I've already recorded. But yeah, just kind of taking a look at guys like Lonnie Jones here. Again, very little scoring, good post defense. That's something that you'll see a lot. And I know at one point in the video, I do sort by that. I feel like there's a lot of good defenders in this class, but there's not a lot of guys that are like ready to be NBA scorers at this point. And this is kind of where I pointed out Luther Towns is your only like elite three-point shooter guy. Thiago Silva, a point guard, is pretty solid. I mean, definitely looks like an all-around scorer. You got Sylvester Spencer here, Homer Person. Definitely guys that I feel like can score, but there's nobody that really stands out to me as being an elite scorer, at least anytime soon outside of Luther Towns. So that's something to just to keep in mind as we're doing this. You see Jack Wright, the only A perimeter defense, but there are a handful of guys that do hit at least the B level. And then inside, a lot of centers and power forwards here that at least show that they can be good defenders pretty quickly. And again, kind of just pointing out some different guys here. Lonnie Jones, Pat Henry. Just guys that I think are important to take a look at as trying to build up the defense around Trae Young. Obviously, I'm taking like the approach that we took Zachary Richard because he gives us that good defense, and hopefully working around Trae's weakness and what he just kind of gives us as a floor offensively. Being able to put good defense behind him can just raise our floor on that end as well. But again, nobody that's really standing out to me as being like a superstar level player here. But yeah, and don't have a whole lot of like surefire information on a lot of these guys either. Especially Spencer is a guy that I kind of found a little bit interesting to take a look at, but again, just kind of sorting it. Nobody that I feel great about being a really good three-point shooter coming out of the gates. This is now the part of the video that just kind of give me the basic rundown. Just kind of go to this scouting report tab, kind of go through these players, see if there's anything that really stands out to me as far as guys that at least appear to have the good high-end upside for us to take a look at. Several of these guys do kind of have that all-star level, a couple of them the all-NBAs, but you pretty quickly get to the guys that look more like starting pieces more so than anything else. But some of these guys do have really good ceilings, like Jim Carl here, Bam Adebayo. Definitely got some talented players. This is the part of the video, at least in the live commentary, I started really discussing something that I feel like this team is missing is the post control aspect on offense. Just don't really have that. So this is the point in time where I take a look at the roster. Talk about Jalen Johnson, who I like. I've said multiple times throughout the series that I view him as a pillar player for us, basically second just to Trae Young. But as I pull up the stats, you'll see that post control, we have nobody that excels at that at all. In fact, the highest player that we have is Jalen Johnson, along with Clint Capella at just a 70, which is a very low number. I just take just a quick glance, and pretty much every team has a guy that's at least like in the mid-80s, roughly, if not higher, of course. I do think it's part of the offense that is missing, because I don't get to just, if things are going bad, I can just dump the ball down to a guy in a post and just let him go to work. And something that I'm at least wanting to look at. So I start looking at the 4s and the 5s in this class. And, of course, you can't really see those stats at this point. Really the only thing you can see is just kind of their ability to score on the inside, so on and so forth. But, yeah, Jalen's strength is definitely not being a post-controlled style of player, but still really produced extremely well for us, was really efficient throughout the season, and was good any time that I used him. That's why we gave him the big contract extension. Now we're going to take a look at the draft lottery, which, again, I'll admit, was a little embarrassing to remember that I actually have a lottery pick that we are getting from the Lakers. And this was the screen that I saw it. And to be honest, I was shocked. So I've taken a look at this class. And, again, I don't think it's a great class, to be completely honest with you. As I go back here and I'm trying to look to see whether or not it was actually a lottery pick or not. Or lottery protected pick, excuse me. But yeah, was definitely shocked to see that. We ended up popping back into it. So what we'll do is we'll go into the point that the Hawks pick here is actually being shown, and the Pelicans end up sticking there at the 14th pick. And then once we get to the Hawks pick, we'll kind of skip towards the end to see who wins the Luther Towns sweepstakes. The Utah Jazz there end up at 13 as expected. The Nets end up sticking there at 12. And then here at pick 11 is supposed to be the Heat, and it is the Heat. I do like how they tell you like when a team moves up, because I'm not super familiar again with this. So the 76ers here are the ones that really get to move up. So they were supposed to end up having that 10th pick, and instead they will move into the top 4 with that selection. And this is the Hawks' supposed landing spot, and that is where the Hawks will pick. So they will end up picking at number 9. So that's going to give us 2 draft picks. We got pick 9, and we have pick 21. So it gives us kind of ammunition to do some different things if we decide to do so. But it's just dependent on what we want to do. We can use them to maybe package with a player, try to move up, try to do something along the lines of that. or we try to use those picks to move up. Again, I've talked about how much I like Jack Wright. I think he'd be the kind of player that would be worth moving up for because he kind of fits a lot of what I want from a secondary player. Right alongside Trae Young. Gives you the good defense and can create on his own, can score around the basket. But yeah, as we end up here getting into the top four, we see the 76ers do get the fourth pick. The Grizzlies get the third. And the number 2 pick ends up being the Detroit Pistons, which means the Washington Wizards do win the lottery. They get the number 1 pick and get to take, again, what I think is a generational prospect. At least maybe a lower end generational prospect in Luther Towns, and the Wizards do get that. So congratulations to them. That's outstanding. It's excellent. I think it gives them a real chance to get a franchise piece there. And this ends up being your entire draft, where you see we have pick 9 and pick 21. This is our staffing signings at the end. The only person we had to get was an assistant GM, so we went with that. Then we kind of go through the combine. None of this stuff really stands out overly to me. I'm not really sure exactly what I'm looking for here. I guess just different athleticism things. But this ends up being the people that we look at from our pre-draft workouts. Got some guys here in Corey Cheeks. Do like him, think he gives some upside there. But yeah, we're now ready for the draft. So I take one last look here at the prospects after really, going through the combine and going through the pre-draft workouts. And we're just taking one last look and peeking, trying to figure out maybe guys that I'm liking in that top 10, guys that I'm liking around our second pick that could maybe be players, either right now or down the line, or do you try to, take the jump up? So this is Corey Cheeks, a player out of Marquette who is a little older but does have super high potential, or actually he's just 20, excuse me. He's got some potential, but is not really in a great spot. He's a guy that would probably have to go to the G League. Picking at pick 9, that's not something I'm really interested in, and picking a guy that would have to do that. I want somebody that's going to contribute to us here pretty quickly. Homer person, pretty good scorer, but already 23 years old. Again, we take a look at Cheeks. He's got that excellent potential. I mean, A+ is outstanding, and would excite you down the line, even if it does take a couple of years for him to get there. And here we're just kind of going through some other players. And this is, I think, about the point where I realized that as you're clicking on these guys, their ratings and the positional average end up being exactly the same. So it kind of glitches there in that standpoint. It's not quite as good as it is when you're just looking at the roster. But, yeah, just taking a look at some of these guys. And, again, there's not but so many players that really interest me in this class. So what I think this does is either leads me to wanting to move up in the draft or to try and potentially trade, for another player that can help us out immediately. I don't want to be, the same situation the Hawks were in with real life, where they ended up trading a bunch of guys, getting DeJounte Murray, and then that doesn't work out. Like, I want to be smart about it, and I want to have a plan as to what we're doing. And I think that going through this process and making this video really helps me along that path of what I want to do. Again, there are guys that I like in this class. Glenn Perry here out of North Carolina, I do think has upside. He's young. Post control, again, is not great, but it's something that I think that we could eventually get to a level that we want it to be at, but just not quite there at the moment. And just for some reason I keep looking at him, trying to try to see what they do with the potential. So there, the potential shows a C. On the other screen, it shows an A. One thing that I've noticed is it seems like the potential rating is really weird in this game as to what it shows you from a letter grade perspective versus what their actual potential is. I'm not overly familiar with why that would be a thing for them. But yeah, now we're just going to take one last look at actually the trade finder. I talked about earlier in the episode, DeAndre Hunter maybe taking the idea of trading him. So what I do here is I just pull up DeAndre Hunter, put him with them first round picks, and I just kind of take a glance as to what I would be offered if we do that. And some of these obviously don't interest me at all. The Drew Holiday does not. This G.G. Jackson one, along with Tobias Harris, would give us some scoring potential off the bench. I think would maybe be interesting as a guy that kind of replaces DeAndre Hunter, but not super ecstatic about that. Miles Bridges obviously would be pretty interesting. Julius Randle, Rui Hachimura obviously would be pretty interesting as well. The Magic trade does not interest me at all. Cameron Thomas. But there's not a whole lot here that really stands out as like I really feel like I need to go get that done like right now. Again, I do think Hunter provides value. I think I just need to get used to his shot because I think other than that, I think he really would be a very beneficial player for us and could do a whole lot of positive things for us. He's an excellent free throw shooter, excellent three-point shooter. I'm just not great with him, but the value that he does give us, I think, is enough to where I need to kind of try to figure that out. But it's at least something that I'm looking at. Now we take a look at the mock drafts and just kind of see. I've got my eye obviously on Jack Wright, and in this first mock draft they actually have him falling to us, which obviously I would be ecstatic about, but based on the other two mock drafts, it's not something that I'm really expecting to happen. I think if I want Wright, I think we have to move up for him, and I think a lot of the other players around that 9th pick spot are not my favorite players, but they're upside in some of those guys. So now we're getting ready here, getting close to the end of the video, and I think what we're going to do now is end up taking one last look at the just a last look at the roster and what I think about it just in general. So don't really have anybody here on the draft board, and yeah, big boards, just kind of taking a glance at that. I thought this is when I moved over to the roster, but it is not. But trying to take a look at who the top 10 are. Sporting News definitely kind of has a different outlook of what I do on it, so not really trusting that so much. But again, so love the point guard room. We have Trae Young, Daniels, Buffkin. Had at least Trae for another year. I think is great, and I love what Daniels gives us off the bench, and I love Buffkin's upside. Bogey, we're really light here at shooting guard with essentially just being him. Obviously, Ricochet can play the 2 a little bit, but it's not where you want him to be playing all the time, certainly. But the move over to small forward, really like what we got here as far as Ricochet, but it gets a little lackluster behind him. Roddy and Matthews can shoot the ball a little bit. Matthews for sure can shoot it from 3, but weren't used a whole lot. Jalen Johnson, DeAndre Hunter at the 4. Obviously, Hunter gives us the versatility, and Jalen does too. Really can kind of be a 3 and a 5, but in this center, going to have to try to bring back Clint Capella. Okongwu, I would feel good about being our starter, but do you look to add depth behind him? Because you're going to need obviously more than the one center, and they do give us really good rebounding, good interior defense between the 2 of them. But yeah, we're getting here towards now the end of the video, and thank you for the patience. It's the first time I've done the commentary after recording it, so it's been a little awkward for me. I did kind of cut some stuff that was a little bit harder for me to just kind of talk over, looking through the prospects, but kind of wanted to give you guys just a brief rundown of what we have in general. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the content, like and subscribe. Check out my 2 dynasties on College Football 25 and Georgia and Tulane. And thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, peace.